Head over to the new ChampionshipWrestlingMemphis.com where you can find brand new Superstar t-shirts. Custom matches are on sale now from our women's division. And of course, we are now enrolling for our brand new training center. Get all the rates and info on how you can become a pro wrestler or sports entertainer at ChampionshipWrestlingMemphis.com/training.
This episode is brought to you by Spunk Lube. Spunk Lube is the perfect blend of water and silicone. It is an all-purpose personal lubricant that can be used for any occasion. You will love the natural feeling and look of it. It is safe for sensitive skin. Go to spunklube.com and tell them Shootin The Shiznit sent you.
Oh, you didn't know? Well, your ass better, you better tell someone. Tell someone about STSPod.com. Tell them now. Call them. Text them. Tell them. Telegram. Send them video messages. Whatever. Tell them.
All the Right Notes, the first book by Twitter influencer Lance Levine. It's a wild ride down a path of musical adventure that recaps many random run-ins with rock royalty, such as U2, Slash, The Ramones, The Goo Goo Dolls, and many more. And all the crazy occurrences that have happened to him that trace back to music. All the Right Notes is 209 pages, sure to bring a smile to your face and to remind you how much music has probably touched your life as well.
All the Right Notes, available now on Amazon in paperback for $14.99 and on Kindle for all you tech warriors for $9.99. Also at local Chicago bookstores, as well as Rolling Stone Records on Harlem and Irving. If you can't find it, ask for it by name. All the Right Notes by Lance Levine. And I have been told I could not put it down. I read it all in one day. So order it now and see what all the fuss is about.
Pro Shingle presents the Jerry Jarrett VIP Experience Sunday, May 2nd at the brand new Memphis Wrestling Wrestle Center. Meet the founder of Memphis Wrestling. Get your tickets now at ChampionshipWrestlingMemphis.com.
Shootin the Shiznit, Shootin the Shiznit, best little wrestling podcast in the business. Your host BT, and always guest. You'll never know who he'll have next. Shootin the Shiznit, Shootin the Shiznit, best little wrestling podcast in the business. Shootin the Shiznit.
Hey, we're live from STS Studios in Jonesboro, Arkansas, and I have my old buddy, Mike Gunter, live in the green room. Mike, come on over. How's it going, brother?
Going great, Brian. Going great. Thanks for having me on.
Man, first of all, how long has it been since we talked?
Oh, Lord. Years. Many years, probably.
Oh, my God, because, you was one of those guys, Jeff Baldwin, Dave Meltzer, guys that I talked to on a regular basis. I was living in Jonesboro and going to college, and then we were all tape trading kayfabe sheets, and you call it.
Absolutely.
And I would talk to you on a regular basis. If you are watching this, by the way, guys, if you're watching this on Facebook Live, me and Mike had some technical difficulties, so you won't get to see my beautiful face, but you can sit back and listen to all of the episode, every bit of it right here on Facebook Live. But yeah, we would, which I'm going to start with when you started becoming a wrestling fan, and I want to say that I listened to a little bit of an episode of John McAdams' podcast this morning just to hear your voice again and something you said, and I want to talk to you about that. But let's start as you as a kid or becoming a fan. When did you do that, Mike?
Well, this past Friday of the 23rd, I turned 66 years old. That was my birthday.
All right.
And I grew up in a real small town in South Alabama, and it was like 60 miles due west of Dothan and 90 miles due south of Montgomery and 20 miles from the Florida border. And I can remember watching wrestling in the early 60s on the Dothan channel. We got three TV channels down there, and the only one that ever had any wrestling on the whole time I lived there was the one out of Dothan, and it was Gulf Coast Championship Wrestling. So I started watching it in the early 60s. And I can't put an exact date on when I started watching it, but I do know that the big baby faces there were the Fields brothers, Bobby Don and Lee Fields, because Lee Fields on the promotion, although I didn't know it at the time. And they were on TV all the time, and I can remember the earliest thing I can put a date on was I can remember the TV announcer coming on. I think it was Craig Stevens was his name. And he came on one Saturday and said he had some horrible news that Don Fields had been injured in a car wreck and could never wrestle again. And I found out that happened in August of 1963. So I've been watching way before then. So I've been watching since the early 60s.
Wow.
And,
that was TV. They had TV on a regular basis there in your area in the 60s, right?
Yeah, they take TV every Saturday morning, and they ran a card at the Houston County Farm Center every Friday night. And that Saturday TV show, the total reason for its existence was to drive traffic to that.
Just
Friday
like Memphis, like the Memphis show, yeah. Monday night, steel cage match, Mid-South Coliseum kind of thing. Yeah, the big commercial.
Absolutely. And they would promote spot shows, too, because like the town I lived in, they would run a spot show there on Saturday nights about every 3 or 4 weeks at our National Guard Armory. So, but mainly it was for the next Friday nights what they were promoting.
I can't remember the actual building we went to for the spot shows in Memphis was in Blythe, Arkansas, and someone listening to this can probably tell me my memory's horrible, Mike. It's just horrible. I can't remember if it was a Kiwanis or a Rotary, but I think all of that's really funny. Like every time we talk about going to wrestling back in the day, we either went to a Kiwanis club, a Rotary club, a National Guard Armory. That's where they promoted everything at.
Yeah, and the cool thing about that is one year we had our Boy Scout troop met in the Armory, and occasionally they'd leave the ring up in there between the spot shows, and so they had big signs on it that says, stay out of the ring, but of course, boys being boys, we'd get up in there and play around like we were wrestlers. It's kind of funny.
Man, that would have been a dream come true for me, man. The ring's still set up. So did you start going to live events at the time?
My parents did not want me going to live events for some reason. But if I spent the night at my best friend's house on a Saturday night, there was wrestling in town, his dad would take us over there and leave us. So, yeah, I went a few times when I was, in early teens, maybe 13 or 14. And the first time we ever went is really, really funny story. One of the matches that night was Rocket Monroe was wrestling one of the medics. This is when, I guess, Rocket saved Flash Monroe from being beat up, and they turned babyface for a very short time. And anyway, we walk up to the arena, and sitting off to the side on a little parking pad was a Cadillac convertible, and on the hood was Rocket Monroe, and he was smoking a cigar. So before the matches, me and my friend would go over there, and my friend goes, "Hey, you're Rocket Monroe," and the guy says, "Yes, I am. You must be a brain surgeon or something like that." Real smart ass remark, and we start talking to him for a minute, and he says, "Why ain't you warming up or something before your match?" And he says, "Look, kid, I'm just trying to relax." And I said, "Oh, he doesn't have to worry. He's wrestling. He's only got to wrestle that stupid old medic." And Rocket Monroe goes, "Listen here, son." Starts pointing his cigar at me. He says, "Ain't nobody an easy match in this business. You got to work your ass off. Now get out of here and let me relax." So,
oh my God! I just had a discussion. Yeah, I had a discussion with somebody. One of the baby faces was doing an interview on the new Memphis wrestling show, and he said he called his opponent an old man. And I said, all right, we don't do that. We don't talk about your opponent, because what if that old man beat you? How would that feel? But that's what he was doing. He was telling you he had a tough match. So if he did win, he's a badass. I love. Did you ever notice that? Because the assassins did this. Well, they did it in every area, but the medics, the assassins, if you was doing really well and you was the top heel mass team, you might see them on Friday night in Blytheville, but they also may be in Nashville that same night, and it'd be different guys. Did you ever notice that there was different medics? Because I know the medics did that also.
Yeah, probably. We had the medics, we had the interns, we had all those different teams come through our area.
The interns were the same guys that worked in this area. They worked as Fire and Flame and the Assassins. They were the interns. They was a little bit of everything. It was Don Bass and, Randy Rhodes, I think was the guy's name.
Okay.
Right. Roger Smith.
Right.
Good. Guys worked really hard. They always had good matches.
The intern chair had Ken Ramey with them.
Man, I have read some stuff that Ken Ramey had wrote about being a heel manager, and you talk about somebody that was so smart to the business and what you're supposed to do and not do as a heel manager. I'll have to look that stuff up and read it on the show someday. But it was so far ahead, and if people, it's kind of one of those things where. I watch everything now, Mike. I watch all the new stuff. I don't watch WWE on a regular basis, but I follow the pay-per-views. I watch AEW on a regular basis. I watch New Japan. I watch a little bit of everything. But it's still one of those things that stay relevant, is what you're supposed to do as a heel manager, and he was right there with it. So when did you start going on a regular basis to some of the other, or where did we go from this promotion to, Mid-Atlantic and those areas and stuff? What happened in between?
All right. In between, the town I lived in was real small. It was like 5,000 people. And we got something called Community Cable TV in February of 1969. And on that, one of we got 6 channels that we didn't have before. And one of them had championship wrestling from Florida. So I got exposed to different wrestling that way. And the first episode I ever saw that show was the one after the TV show after Dory Funk Jr. beat Gene Kiniski for the world title. And I can remember Gordon Soley sitting there interviewing a very young Dory Jr., and he's wearing a suit with a royal blue shirt and a cowboy hat. And so that was my first exposure to anything other than Gulf Coast wrestling. So flash forward to January of 1971. I'm not even 15 years. I'm a little over 15 years old, 15 and a half years old. And my family moves from the small town I grew up in Alabama to Raleigh, North Carolina. I was halfway through the 10th grade, and we went from a town of 5,000 people to a town of 300,000 people or so. So I didn't know anything other than that small town and Gulf Coast wrestling, Florida Championship Wrestling. But luckily, Florida Championship Wrestling was on TV here also on a little BHF channel, or UHF channel, I mean. And but Mid-Atlantic was the main promotion here. So I started watching it in January of 1971, and it had not yet changed over completely, but it was getting ready to change over from the tag team era to the heyday of it.
That's what I want to talk to you about, because you mentioned something. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about the tag team era, what you was talking about. So here we go.
All right.
Jerry Jarrett is coming home to Memphis, courtesy of Pro Shingle, a professional roofing company. Meet the founder of Memphis Wrestling on Sunday, May 2nd. Tickets are available at championshipwrestlingmemphis.com.
This episode is brought to you by Spunk Lube. Spunk Lube is the perfect blend of water and silicone. It is an all-purpose personal lubricant that can be used for any occasion. You will love the natural feeling and look of it. It is safe for sensitive skin. Go to spunklube.com and tell them Shootin The Shiznit sent you.
All the right notes, the first book by Twitter influencer Lance Levine. It's a wild ride down a path of musical adventure that recaps many random run-ins with rock royalty, such as U2, Slash, the Ramones, the Goo Goo Dolls, and many more. And all the crazy occurrences that have happened to him that trace back to music. All the Right Notes is 209 pages, sure to bring a smile to your face and to remind you how much music has probably touched your life as well.
All the Right Notes, available now on Amazon in paperback for $14.99 and on Kindle for all you tech warriors for $9.99. Also at local Chicago bookstores, as well as Rolling Stone Records on Harlem and Irving. If you can't find it, ask for it by name. All the Right Notes by Lance Levine. And I have been told I could not put it down. I read it all in one day. So order it now and see what all the fuss is about.
Dexter, Missouri, get ready. American Hostile Championship Wrestling is coming to your town May 22nd at the Lair Event Center at 13583 Old Highway 25. Be there to see Big Jack Parker, Trending Trent Daniels, the Crowleys, Young Goats, the Skimmelhorns, Mark Southern, Derek King, and many, many more. Adult tickets are only $15. Kids 6 to 12 get in for $7 and 5 and under are free. American Hostile Championship Wrestling, May 22nd, the Lair Event Center, 13583 Old Highway 25, Dexter, Missouri. Be there.
All right, thanks to our sponsors. A big reminder, this Saturday, every Saturday, rolling into Mempo. That is the Championship from Wrestling the new show. We do a review show on it, a Championship Wrestling from Memphis. And also this past Monday, we had Lance Levine's The Record Store, which has nothing to do with wrestling. So there you go. Talk to me about, you said this on John's show, about Mid-Atlantic was doing the tag team era. And let me tell you, I've always been the biggest, huge tag team mark ever when Fabs, the Moondogs, you name it. And then when I got into wrestling, I was a manager and always managed a tag team against another tag team. I actually managed the whole thing, but that's the way I did. Being a tag team mark, you said it was just like they concentrated mainly on tag teams right before the big boom there.
Right. When I moved there, the top people here were like George Becker and Johnny Weaver, Brute Bernard and Missouri Mauler, Rip Hawk Sweet Hansen, Paul Jones and Nelson Royal. Those were like, the big stars of the territory. And, the singles guys, they had Abe Jacobs, and his hole was a Kiwi leg roll or something. And who else? Argentino Apollo. And people like that were the main stars when we first moved here. And it was strictly pretty much tag team. Now, the first Mid-Atlantic show I ever went to was one they ran in conjunction with Championship Wrestling from Florida. And they were promoting it on both shows, and the main event was Dory Funk Jr. defending the NWA Heavyweight Championship against Jack Briscoe. And in the semi-main event was Eddie and Mike Graham versus Bobby Shane and Rock Hunter. So those were two, and then the rest of the card was Mid-Atlantic guys.
And when you said that they tagged these two guys tagged together all the time, and then did they have the cool tag team names, or were they just themselves and they were a tag team?
No, they were pretty much individuals.
I'll have to go research. I've got a question for myself. When did we start getting the cool names? I can remember the Norville Austin and them being the Midnight Express. I remember that name, and I guess the Hollywood Blondes maybe before all of that.
Probably.
That might have been one of the first tag team names, except for the mask guys.
Down in Alabama, they had like Mike Boyette and Mickey Doyle maybe were the California hippies or something.
Oh yeah,
right before we moved.
Yeah.
That might have been the first one I knew of.
Yeah,
and then they had a Hell's Angels team too down there. So
they were their heels or baby faces. And today they'd be baby faces. The Hell's Angels.
No, they were definitely heels.
So, you started going to Mid-Atlantic, so you kind of hit Mid-Atlantic, and you are a little older than me, so my first wrestling was in 78, but you hit Mid-Atlantic when we started getting the big boom there, where there's,
Absolutely.
Yeah, so you was boom. Did everybody in your high school, was it like my high school that everyone knew what was going on in Memphis wrestling, and we all watched it? Was everybody watching that?
Not really.
Oh wow!
I graduated from high school in '73, so that was right about the time or right before the big boom started hitting in this area. So that happened when I was in college mainly. I did go to a couple of matches in college because I wanted to go see. I kept seeing Johnny Valentine on TV, and I wanted to go see him. And I went and saw him at Wahoo one time, wrestle, and a couple things. But the wrestling, I'd always been a fan my whole life, and I kept up with it. But it just really didn't take off. And one lucky thing, when I got out of college, I took a job in Charlotte, so I moved there, and that's the home of Mid-Atlantic Wrestling. And I got back watching there, and I started going to the Coliseum, when they'd run big shows there. And what I did for the first 5 years after I got out of college, I worked in retail at stereo stores. And I really liked that, but a lot of wrestlers would come in those stores. So I got to meet a lot of the guys living in Charlotte, and have got a lot of great memories from that.
What would they'd come in and buy a stereo?
Well, Killing Time, and some of them did. They actually bought stuff. Like I sold the first one I ever sold anything to was Greg Valentine. I sold him a cabinet, put his stereo equipment in, and I was managing one of the stores, and the store he came in, and he did not want to buy one you had to put together yourself. So he gave me $100 bill to let him buy the display model.
Were they were they kayfabing you? Were they just, if he was a heel, was he being an ass, or were they just being real cool?
No. He wasn't even wrestling for Crockett then. He was wrestling for the first tour for Vince Sr., but he still lived in Charlotte. And because I asked him, I said, "Where have you been? I hadn't seen you on TV in a while." He said, "Well, I'm up in working in New York for the time being." But no, he was real nice, and he gave me a couple autograph pictures and all that. He had, when I put the cabinet in the trunk of his car, and then I moved to another store right up. And this other one I worked at was on the corner of Independence Boulevard and Sharon Avenue, which was like the biggest intersection in Charlotte, and it was like this, maybe a mile and a half from the Coliseum, and a lot of wrestlers came in there. And the first one I met there was Blackjack Mulligan Jr., which was, Barry, but that's what he was called there, Blackjack Mulligan Jr. And he came in and he was looking around. He bought a Walkman. This was when they were first coming out from me. And I asked him, I said, "You don't have to wrestle today?" And he was shocked that I knew he was a wrestler. And he said, "Yeah, I'm wrestling tonight down in Fayetteville. Just wanted something to take along on the road with me," and all that stuff. So, but the coolest thing about that job and in that location was I got to meet Jack Briscoe.
Oh, wow.
He came in there one day. He came in there, and obviously I recognized him, and one of the other guys recognized him too. And so I went up to him and started talking to him, and he was as nice as he could be. This is before they turned heel. And he actually came in there 3 or 4 times and he said, he asked if I went to the matches. He says, "Well, come on over by the dressing room," because they had a little area that was roped in that the babyface would come out and stand around. He said, "Come over if you see me out there and say hello." So I started doing that. I wanted to go to the Coliseum. He'd be out there, and he'd come over and he'd call me by name, shake my hand, and just nice as he could be.
What a hell of a story with Jack Briscoe. And I went back and watched some of those of the Briscoe stuff, and Man,
Right.
they were just as good as we remembered them to be. They just
Absolutely.
so good at putting together a match where if it was them working as a baby or a heel and putting over that local guy, even though they would win, it was a lot like what Ric Flair did, but not as much
Right.
as but they would put over the guy that was staying. So can you remember the moment that you said, I talk about this, my first matches, live matches, I was 5 feet from the ring. I knew something was not on the up and up, but didn't really care, if you want to know the truth.
Right,
But
right.
I was smartened up by Dick Bourne. And I know you know that name, and some people in kayfabe world may know it. He's wrote some books and did a lot of other stuff about wrestling. But he sent me, I think he sent me a Observer and something else, and said it was the time that where Dusty was Flair and a bunch of them jumped him, and I was a Dusty fan, and I mentioned something to someone about it, and he was like, Dusty's this, Dusty's that, blah blah blah. Start reading this, and I started reading the kayfabe sheets, and I guess that was right before I went to a senior in high school, and when I went in as a senior in high school, I thought I knew everything about the wrestling business,
Right.
and
Right.
was. It was number one, inside. I was being inside, telling
Right.
all my friends about it, and I mentioned that we all talked about Memphis wrestling and Monday Night Football. That was the only thing that put us all together. We could watch that on them 3 channels that we got. But do you remember when you were smartened up?
Not really. Well, maybe, and yeah, I know Dick real well. I used to trade him worldwide tapes. He didn't have access to them when he lived in Alabama, and Steve Beverly hooked us up, and I would send him worldwide tapes, and he'd send me Continental. So I've known Dick all that time, and we went to tons of shows together. But maybe it might have been Starrcade '83 when I figured out, because they did all that promotion for Flair for the Gold and all that, and I went to the first 4 Starrcades live, '83, '84, '85, and '86, and just I figured, well, if they're doing all this and Flair doesn't win, but then he won, and so maybe that's when I figured it out. I don't know. That might have been when I knew for sure something wasn't all on the up and up. You always heard wrestling's fake, and I said, well, it sure doesn't look fake when some of the ass kicking you see.
Yeah, we had Kenny Bolin on a few times, and Kenny tells a funny story about Jim Cornette. With Jim Cornette, he knew it was work, but the world title matches, they were real. That's what that's what he told
Right.
Kenny. Those matches were real. And the expression that we always said was, man, they got mad. They got mad for real,
Right.
kind of thing. So you could tell it was fake until a certain point, and then they got mad. When did you start? How long have you been reading kayfabe sheets, and do you still subscribe?
Yeah, I'm still a member of the Observer website and still
There you
read
go.
that.
Yeah.
In spring of 1985, I used to buy wrestling magazines all the time, and one of them had a thing in the back about a list of newsletters.
Right.
And most of them said send a self-addressed envelope and they'll send you a free sample. So I sent off for about a dozen of them, and one of them was the Observer. So I started subscribing to the Observer like in May of 1985. So
I think that's exactly when I did. Well, no, I take that back. I did it. No, that's very. I subscribe. See, it was around Christmas of '84. So because I think I come back from. I said I came back in my senior year, but I think I came back from Christmas break. Smart. I was a mark before Christmas, and I came back for Christmas break, and I was a smart fan. Did it do you like? This is what happened to me when I started getting kayfabe sheet. Is I actually had more interest in the business. Like I wanted to know everything then.
Yeah, well, hell yeah, absolutely.
And then you did the same thing. You did tape trade. I had tape update, and I accepted donations, Mike. I didn't actually make real money, just donations.
Right.
For videotapes. How many VCRs did you have going at one time, or did you just have 2?
I probably think the most I ever had at one time was like 3, maybe. But I worked in the stereo business, so I could get deals on them, to start with. And but yeah, I love me some wrestling tapes, and I've traded a lot with you and John McAdam and some other people too, Dave Meltzer.
I know Dave used to have the best. He would do the best of stuff, and I don't know. A lot of people remember that, but some of those were my first look at Lucha Libre, New Japan, things like that. And he would have best of stuff. A name that came to my mind when I was thinking about interviewing you today, and I want to know if you remember this guy. He was a tape trader, and he sent out this huge list on legal size paper, and his name was Steve Minari. Do you remember him?
I remember the name, yeah, and I traded some with him too.
He was crazy, man. He eventually had all kinds of stuff where he said someone had robbed and took all his tapes, and then come to find out he was trading with somebody else the same things. But he was one of those guys that did a rating, like all the people that subscribed to his. I don't know what he called it. I want to say Matt Results, but that's probably not it. It was just a big tape listing, and he had them all vote on the tag teams. And that's one of those things is where I learned work rate and all that. Even though I was smart, they had the Nightmares up there. One of my favorite tag teams, Mass Tag. But the Nightmares were like number one, and they were having some of the best matches, and they were commenting about, they had the best match here, best match there. And I think that kind of taught me, hey, we look at stuff a little different than the regular wrestling fan does. And I remember, and I actually talked to Ken Wayne about that, and Ken and Danny had no idea. They knew about the kayfabe sheets, but they didn't really know, how popular or how good everyone thought they were. And the funny thing about the kayfabe sheets to the boys back then is that they read them not for the gossip, but mainly for the attendance. So if they if they're doing good in Alabama or they need a new tag team, we'll go. It was kind of different than it is now, where everybody reads it or everybody comments or everybody knows what's going on. And the internet did that, and we knew that technology changed every business around it, changed the wrestling business, the stages it changed. And you said you get the actual website. I get the website. My buddy Lance Levine still gets the paper version that you can't. I'm too old. Right. I can't see all that. But so tell me, you had a lot of guys coming in stereo. Into your workplace and so forth. And I know you hung out with some of the guys. Tell me who was probably the coolest guy you ever hung out with, wrestler-wise?
That I ever hung out with was Cornette, and and I've been around him probably 20 times, maybe 25 times, I don't know, over the years. But the very first time was 1988, on my birthday, actually. 1988, I was 33 that day I met him, and so I've known him exactly half my life. But that was the Saturday of the last Crockett Cup, and that's the year they ran the first night in Greenville, South Carolina, and the second night in Charlotte. And Dave Meltzer and I had started going to a lot of matches. In fact, first time I met Dave in person was Starrcade '86. He flew into Raleigh and spent the night at my house, and we went over to Starrcade in '86. So I'd known him since then. But this was like in '88, this Crockett Cup. We'd gone down to Greenville, and him, myself, and Jeff Baldwin went over to Cornette's house that Saturday and had lunch with him and his wife at the time and his mom. And that's the first time that David met him in person. First time,
wow.
Jeff had and me. So
that's
that was
I think it's funny when people talk about, Jim's polarizing now more than he ever has been.
Right. Yeah.
And at times I think he's just working everybody, but then I've talked to Meltzer and a few other people, and they think he's lost his mind. So,
he thinks Dave's lost his mind.
Yeah, I know it. So you got a guy who he's known forever, in that relationship I talked about this on Patreon and left it and put it up as a clip. And I want to get your opinion on it since you're same as me, old school. You started with the kayfabe seats. Do you think now Meltzer, he really puts over AEW a lot? Back in the day,
right.
think of the people that he put over a lot, and the Jim Cornettes and all of that. And I think it has a lot to do, and I'm not saying it's being biased, but it has a lot to do with who you're talking to at the time. What do you think?
Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%.
I think
100%.
It does because, he was putting over Ric Flair over Hogan. He was putting over this.
Right.
And J.J. Dillon was in his ear a lot. Guys like that he was putting over. And now Tony Khan's a young promoter who, if I was a young promoter, I'd probably pick up the phone too and say, Dave, what do you think about this,
Right.
So,
see, I got to know Dave really well over the years. And he and I I bet we went probably 30 times to events together around the country. I mean, we went to the Paul Bosch retirement show. We went to, so many WCW pay-per-views. And after the matches, like when we were out, like we'd usually go over to like Cornette's room and hang out with him in the midnight or stuff like that. And, when we were in Nashville for the Flair Steamboat match after the show, we went over and hung out with Paul Heyman in his room for a long time, and so it's definitely who he talked to back in those days. I don't know about now because I haven't talked to Dave in years.
Right, I only talked to him when someone in the Memphis area dies. If you want to know the truth, so it's one of those things where I send him an email, call me if you want to, and then we talk about Scott Bowden when he died, and then Brian Christopher. Scott was a friend of mine and Dave's, but Dave is.
I never heard. What did they ever?
No,
what happened?
No idea. I've heard all kinds of rumors, but I'm not going to say a word because I don't know what happened with Scott. I hate it. I just hate it. He was a really good guy. Always so super nice. I did a Memphis website for about 5 years. Just on the Memphis, the newer shows. Well, they're old now. They're 20, but he would always come Yahoo Messenger. He'd send me something to say, this, that, or he's just so smart about the business. Really good guy. And Dave, the thing about Meltzer is us knowing him so long. So I talked to Dave probably for about 5 years. Every Sunday about the Memphis promotion and gave him the results, and I was the locker room snitch back then, and so that's where he get all his Memphis news. But yeah, Dave, and me and Lance talk about this all the time. That what Dave says, there is no malice in anything Dave would say, and he believes everything. If he says a match is a certain amount, he believes it. He really does. There's and that's where that I think Cornette's wrong. Where Cornette thinks that Dave's friends, because he's friends with them, that just makes them better. That's not true. But back in the day, he was friends with you, Corny, and he loved you. So what the hell? How's his opinion been so fucked by then? Do
you want to hear while we're talking about Dave and all the probably the coolest thing I ever did as a fan? I got invited to Cornette's surprise 30th birthday party.
Oh, wow.
And I was the only non-business, person there, really. Dave was there. Dave was invited, and his wife at the time, Kelly, she kept it all secret and invited us all. And we had an elaborate plan they had some friends visiting. They took him out to play some pool, and she got everybody over to the house. And when he came back, we were all there, and we surprised him. But like I said, I was the only non-business person. Dave flew in from California. Dennis Carluzza was there with his son. Brian Hildebrand was there with his dad. And like Sandy Scott was there. Tim Horner and his wife were there. Bobby Eaton's wife was there. And it was just it was a lot of fun. Mama Cornette was there, obviously, and it was a lot of fun. And later that night, Bobby Eaton shows up after their WCW match, wherever it was, and he had Mick Foley with him, so that's where I got to meet Mick Foley. And everybody eventually left, and it was like at 4 a.m. It was me, Dave, and Mick Foley were the only ones there. So Corny had to take us back to the hotel because we couldn't drive over there because they shuffled us there to keep him from finding out about. And so, like, we're riding through downtown, the South Boulevard area of Charlotte at 5 a.m. with me, Cactus Jack, Dave Meltzer, and Corny. That was kind of funny. But then the coolest part, though, was the next day, we went back to Cornette's house, and about 8 or 9 of us went over to Ric Flair's house and spent like 4 hours at Ric Flair's house.
Oh, my God.
I know. Me, Meltzer, Cactus Jack, Brian Hildebrand, his dad, Dennis Corluzzo, and Corny. We were just all over there, and Flair could not have been nicer. He
awesome.
And his wife. I mean, we had a great time that.
I know, and you've had that experience, and I've had it too. And it's just a weird experience because you grow up watching these guys. The Dundees and Lawlers for me was what really is the first time I met those guys and spent time in the locker room bullshitting with them. I went home thinking these are the guys I'm still growing up, but I grew up watching, and it was almost like you're hanging out with I don't know, the cast of Gilligan's Island or something. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're TV stars, so you're just like, and then I want to say jaded, but it's not really jaded. You get to where it's not a big deal. Like I hung out with the Undertaker before he was the Undertaker. He stayed at my apartment in Jonesboro when he needed to on the couch. And we have a funny story where me and him, we ate a whole pizza and then decided to order another one and shit like that. So it's almost like the stars they're not stars, they're just people you know. Heyman's another one, too. I talked to Heyman, I guess, 3 or 4 years ago, and, he's still Paul. He's the same Paul. He's the same guy that he would answer the phone sometimes, or you'd have to leave 20 messages and he'd finally call you back kind of guy. That's him. And so it's just one of those things, all of us growing up and being around those guys gives you – it's like – it's not that I'm not going to put them over because they're talented, but now I'm just like, I was with the Undertaker. I knew Jimmy. I knew Paul Heyman. I knew, I hung out with Jerry Lawler. I'm friends with Jerry Lawler's son, and things like that. And you just like get to where it's not a big deal, And Bobby Eaton,
right.
By the way, Bobby he is probably the nicest guy I've ever met in the wrestling business.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. We'd go over to their room after the shows, and he was always as friendly as he could be. And when he saw me at Cornette's party, he came over and shook my hand and all that stuff. It's real.
That's him. I mean, he'll ask you, how's it going, blah, 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 at a show. I did a quick angle with him one night where the guy that was managing him said, do you want to do an angle with Bobby? And I said, yeah, okay. And we hit the ring, and I started talking and everything, and Bobby got in the ring with Brian Thompson, who was his manager. And I said, Bobby, you come from the greatest tag team ever, except the Rock and Roll Express. Now, the Rock and Roll Express was better than you, but other than that, the Midnight Express. And it got over. They booed me like crazy, But Bobby, he did the job for my guy. And I mean, he was just like, what do y'all want to do for the finish? And I was like, you tell us. He goes, well, y'all going over. And I was like, okay, we'll do that. We have no problem with that.
Right.
All right, man,
That's
Mike,
funny.
it's been fun. I want everyone to join us this coming Saturday for Rolling into Memphis. Remember, same bad time, same bad channel on the best little wrestling podcast in the business. Be there. And as everyone knows, and Mike's going to know now, I love my mama. Thank you, Mike.
My pleasure.
Pro Shingle presents the Jerry Jarrett VIP Experience Sunday, May 2nd at the brand new Memphis Wrestling Wrestle Center. Meet the founder of Memphis Wrestling. Get your tickets now at championshipwrestlingmemphis.com.
Music is my life, and I bet it's yours too. After all, we're all very complicated beasts. You're not just into wrestling, you're into other stuff too, and that's where the record store comes in. I've got 1,000 CDs or so, and I've been a rock fan for as long as I've been old enough to go to, well, the record store. So every week I close my eyes, stand in front of my collection, and randomly grab a CD. Whatever I pull out. Could be old, could be brand new. It's what I cover in that episode. It could be anything, from Asia to Yes, from John Cougar to Elton John, from Rumors to Weird Al's greatest hits. You just have no idea. I do a little bit of homework on the artist, talk about what they mean to me, and who knows, maybe I've had a chance encounter with one of them. And finally, I review the album track by track. I might confirm that it's one of the greatest albums of all time, or I might conclude that buying that album calls for me to have my head examined. Who knows? So join me, Lance Levine, twice a month right here at the record store, and let me remind you how much the music means to you as well.
Did you enjoy that episode? Cash App us, that's right. $BTSTS. Cash App us $1, $2. If you Cash App us over $12, I'll give you 1 year of Patreon for free.
Graphic design is very important. Your logo is the first image potential customers see. What kind of impression would you want to make today? Need a podcast logo or a t-shirt design? KT does art. Her name has become synonymous with quality and professionalism in the graphic design community. She specializes in graphic design, painting, and more. She provides affordable commissions and professional quality with a timely delivery. Contact KT via email at kt_doesart@yahoo.com. Check out her Instagram at instagram.com/kt_doesart.
Hey, that was another great episode of Shootin The Shiznit. We're currently looking for contestants for Who Wants to Be the Best Shiznitter Ever Championship 2021. A shout out to our sponsors this month, and also we have Patreon at www.patreon.com/shootintheshiznit without a G. A big thank you and a shout out to Bob McGee at Pro Wrestling Between the Sheets and Gene Jackson at localstolegends.com. You can reach us on Twitter at comicbookmarkbt, Instagram BT Shootin the Shiznit without a G, Facebook Shootin the Shiznit with a G, and we're also at Cool Kids Wrestling and MMA Talk. You gotta ask to get in. If we don't like you, we'll kick you out. That's right. And you can get all the archives to all the episodes at www.stspod.club. All right, let's do a roll call of my favorite podcast. So my favorite non-wrestling podcast would be Who's Right Podcast, Po Boys Podcast, The Official Podcast, Man Brain Podcast, I'm Fat Podcast, and my buddies over there, Richard Josh at P3 Radio. Hey guys, thanks for joining us today, and remember, keep your feet on the ground and keep reaching for the stars.